Kennedy's assassination on November 22nd, 1963 was a national trauma that continues to haunt Americans.
In the blink of an eye, America had changed forever. The youngest elected chief executive in U.S. history became the youngest to die.
It was a day when the death of one man caused a nation to weep. Half a century later, we mourn him still.
Air Force One landed at Love Field at 11:40 a.m.
The president looked out and saw the enthusiastic crowd. He told Ken O'Donnell, "This trip is turning out to be terrific. Here we are in Dallas, and it looks like everything in Texas is going to be just fine for us."
The president made sure that the cameras caught Mrs. Kennedy stepping off the plane first. She wore a pink Chanel suit with navy trim and a matching pillbox hat.
It was beautiful, and the colors seemed to reflect the sun. As she stepped out ahead of the president, the crowd seemed awestruck, then started applauding and squealing. The wife of the mayor presented Jackie with a big bouquet of flowers. The blood-red crimson petals looked striking against the pink fabric. The combination of colors seemed to intensify the hue of each, rendering them almost fluorescent. After Kennedy shook a last hand, he and Jackie turned to their car. The bubble top was off. They would ride through Dallas in an open car. Earlier that morning, the agents gambled that the gray skies and rain would disappear by noon. Their bet paid off. It was a bright, gorgeous, and sunny fall day.
On Main Street in Dallas, people were hanging out of open windows and throwing confetti at the motorcade. Buildings were festooned with red, white, and blue bunting.
There were no ugly incidents, and people cheered extra loudly whenever the president drew near. People waved and clapped. Many snapped photographs or took home movies, which in that era did not record sound. At one point along the route, JFK turned around and looked over his right shoulder in the direction of someone making a home movie. The president smiled, and with a playful hand gesture, he beckoned the cameraman to follow along. "Come on," the president seemed to tease as his car drove past the bystander.
And then, shots.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
Mothers and fathers lying on top of their children. Screams. People running in all directions. Drained faces. Shock, horror, bewilderment, and disbelief.
The impact of the bullet propelled Kennedy's elbows and forearms up, parallel to the ground, and pushed his clenched fists, thumbs in, toward his throat. In the photo, a white-gloved hand, Jackie Kennedy's, touched the president's left forearm. Less than 10 minutes after the third shot, the presidential limousine careened into the emergency room driveway at Parkland Hospital. Agents leaped out with guns drawn. One agent brandished an automatic rifle. The president's bodyguards wanted to snatch him from the back seat as quick as they could and rush him inside. Time, they believed, was of the essence. Once Clint Hill got out of the car, the other agents got a clear view of the back seat for the first time. Dave Powers ran up to the limousine, looked inside, and gasped, "Oh my God, Mr. President, what did they do?" Jackie told him, "Dave, he's dead."
A priest has been ordered. Emergency supplies of blood also being rushed to the hospital.
At 1:33 p.m., Mac Kilduff walked into a room to make a statement to the journalists who awaited him there. His hands trembled. Then he spoke.
John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time today here in Dallas. He died of a gunshot wound in the brain. I have no other details regarding the assassination of the president.
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead. Women here in shock, some have fainted. Grown men, Secret Service men standing by the emergency room, tears streaming down their face.
At 12:15 p.m., the pallbearers carried the flag-draped coffin into St. Matthew's. More than 1,000 people attended the service, a low mass conducted by the famous Catholic priest Richard Cardinal Cushing of Boston.
and lead you into the holy city of Jerusalem.
The hour-long service confused John Jr. He fidgeted and asked his mother, "Where's my daddy?" The sacred music, the religious incantations, and the somber setting proved too much for Jackie. After enduring the pain for 4 days, she could no longer hold it in. She began to cry uncontrollably. Her sobbing body heaved and shook. After the service, Jacqueline Kennedy and her children, standing outside the cathedral, watched the honor guard carry the coffin down the steps. Jackie bent down and whispered into her little boy's ear, "John, you can salute Daddy now and say goodbye to him." John Kennedy Jr. saluted his father's coffin, just as he had seen soldiers in uniform do.
It was a child's simple gesture, and yet it brought home the true personal tragedy of November 22nd. President Kennedy's body was then taken across the river to Arlington National Cemetery. 50 jet planes of the Air Force and Navy, one for each state, roared low overhead as the caisson halted behind the grave. An honor guard of Irish military cadets executed a manual of arms in Gaelic. A lone bugler blew taps. A group of servicemen handed Mrs. Kennedy a folded American flag. There was only one piece of unfinished business, one final gesture for the man who had carried the torch for a new generation. Bending down beside her husband's grave, Jackie, with help from Jack's brothers Bobby and Ted, ignited a gas and electric jet that had been installed by the Washington Gas Company. The eternal flame, the symbol of her husband's life and legacy, would glow for as long as the American Republic endured.
John F. Kennedy's unfinished life was cut short before he could fulfill his potential. He was just 46 years old. The nation mourned the death of its young president, not only for the loss of what he was, but also for the loss of what he might have become.
Inspiring rhetoric and a charismatic leader captured forever on film will continue to fire the imagination of Americans yet unborn, and a young president's torch of possibilities and public service will be passed again and again to new generations.
50 years after his death, there is no sign that Kennedy's hold on Americans is anywhere in retreat.